just in general, the potential adverse impact of traffic improvements that may occur on the street landscape. And after all, it's the landscape of Princeton, in part, that makes us a unique community.
But also, we want to keep the trucks, the heavy hazardous material trucks, long-haul trucks, from coming through and affecting our town.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to turn the mic over now to Joanna Kennedy, who was the moderator at the table of preservation and development.
Yes, we were, I think, struggling with the philosophical question of village nostalgia versus real-world economics, and in perhaps slightly different slant to it, but that is the issue in many ways. I think, and I was pleased and a little surprised to realize that consensus was, first, development will happen. Even though we have nostalgia for small town, we accept that it will happen. But then how it happens was really the discussion. That it happens in a controlled way is very important. That it happens, that we have a proactive planning is very important. And that then we got somewhat into the nuts and bolts of it. Does it happen spreading out or not? And there, the desire for preservation of surrounding residential neighborhoods was quite strong, so that says to me development not outward, but within the perceived boundaries of the downtown, although we did not get into specifics of those boundaries. We did talk about zoning as a tool for this controlled development, and fairly strong voice emerged for sane, reasonable, and stable zoning, although there were some voices that said, well, what if the zoning is not correct for the area, or it's not quite right for the neighborhood? So we had a discussion a bit about that. So avoiding development creep was a strong voice. We talked about how that happens. Do you allow a density increase? And I think consensus was yes, but within limits. Some people brought up that height of the development is a concern. We did, and actually there was I think perhaps a minority opinion, but a fairly strong one, that allowing for that commercial development, I think was meant, on a new development site of Merwick was a potential place to relieve the development pressures. Since we really started with the nostalgia and memory of the small town, we talked a lot about preservation and recognizing that preserving that small town is a desirable goal. How to do that? Historic preservation is recognized as a valuable tool in doing it. So I think we were generally in favor of that. And another strong regret was, and I don't know where it fits, was in regretting the loss of small businesses, locally owned businesses, locally serving businesses. That was a repeated theme as well for our groups. What have I missed? Ann?
Someone at our table suggested that we don't really have a downtown in the way other communities of our size do, and certainly the way other universities. Should I hold it like this, or should I hold it like that?
She's got to turn hers off.
Okay. Let me start again. somebody suggested at my turn at the preservation and development table that we don't, that was Mr. Stein, that we don't really have a downtown. And I'm afraid I object to the term nostalgia. I'm as nostalgic as anyone else, and ever since I came to Princeton when I was 6 months old, people have been talking about Princeton going to hell in a handbasket, you know, every year for all those many years. But I think that the desire to have a real downtown that serves local people, where local people actually go, which contributes to the social fabric of the town by bringing teenagers downtown and giving them better things to do than some of the things we fear they may be doing, that's not nostalgia. That's trying to make Princeton a town that serves our current needs. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
There's somebody over here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Mike is coming.
Hi, I've lived in Princeton for over 15 years, and I've traveled around almost every suburban town in the United States, and I think that Princeton has a real community, and I think that the reason you see all these people with their baby carriages and we're overwhelmed on the weekend is because we have something in New Jersey, and certainly central New Jersey, that no one else offers, which is a downtown and a community spirit. The other side of it is that it's very difficult for independent businesses to survive just sheerly economically. The Perkins cannot compete, as you well know, with the Home Depots. And so regardless of how much parking you'll ever have or whatever you do in that regard, the sheer economic and financial demands of small businesses is always going to be there and will continue as corporate America, which has already kind of taken over town in a way. I'm just talking about businesses, the Ann Taylors, the Lindt Chocolate, and on and on. So for me, the struggle is, I agree that as a downtown resident, how is it that you can still have, you know, we had the Woolworths and a few things that people can walk to and really serve the local community and preserve that, but still understanding the tremendous economic realities. That's one, the downtown. And then there is preserving Princeton as a community that has one of the few downtowns that draws in people from all of these wonderful little, what I call McMansion developments, in which there's absolutely nothing to do. That's why they are here in downtown Princeton and come to go to the restaurants and some of the independent stores and some of the university activities. So what am I saying in all of this is I'd like to see more for the real town residents, and I'd like to not see such a demand on the business development that we just have more corporations in the stores. I don't know what the answer is. Thank you. Thank you.
We had quite a bit of, is it on? Okay. We had quite a bit of discussion about how you deal with preservation if it's not historic preservation of buildings or neighborhoods. How do you preserve economic diversity? How do you preserve local ownership of properties? I don't think we came up with a solution because it's that big, big issue of economics and global trends. But yes. Okay.
I want to make one introduction that I failed to make this morning when I introduced our Princeton Future Council members. Professor Marvin Bressler has joined us, and he is a member of the council who's actually joined us here and brought significant interest and insight to our discussion. So I want to point him out to all of you. Since we didn't do my little presentation this morning, but it comes up now, I just want to read you two quotes. In 1873, César Prunier, who was a professor of theology at the University of Switzerland, he wrote a letter to a friend. And he wrote in this letter, "Princeton is idyllic. It is buried in verdure. The streets are simply roads bounded by beautiful trees and broad sidewalks. Each house is separated from its neighbor by a large plot of land. The house is never next to the road. The village is not a block of houses, but a vast space where one sees charming villas spread out. It's pretty delightful. It was in 1873. In 1886, the Princeton Press, local newspaper, complained about the dullness of business and the high price of land, which had the evil result of the budding of it into small lots, hence the cramped look of our streets. I want to turn this over now to Susan Hockaday-Jones, who's going to speak to you about Town and Gown. As you can see, it depends upon your point of view, doesn't it?
Well, one of the things I noticed listening to all of you is that our group seems to have covered all of these territories. We had a great many people. We had such a diversity of opinion that Gail, Ullman, and I had a real struggle narrowing it down to the list you see in front of you. I'm sure there are things that we left out, but I'm going to give you the very best that we had. First of all, we asked the people at our table to each say what their personal experience with the university has been during the time that they lived here. We did not put those responses up because in a way they constituted a list of what the university has to offer the town. And just to make the simplest summary, the university is viewed by a great many people in the town as a beautiful campus, a park, a wonderful place to walk. It offers tremendous cultural, arts, intellectual, athletic activities. And it was clear from the responses at our table that a great many people really enjoyed that aspect of the university. So what we then did was ask the reverse question, which is from the point of view of the campus and the university looking toward the town, what exactly does the town have to offer to the university? And so our first list here is really a summary of what some of those points are. First of all, it was clear that people felt that Princeton is a real town. It's not a spreading town that has no borders, but it's a defined town that has a sense of reality, history, and great beauty. That it offers people who come to the university really quite a wonderful place to live. It has an excellent labor force for the university to employ. Services, police, fire, the infrastructure of the town. These are fairly clear and obvious things. Excellent public schools, the public library. It provides a sense of place. A point that came up over and over again is that the town really does function from the point of view of the university as a really powerful attraction to hiring faculty and staff. Another point that was made over and over again is that it really is the center of a very powerful corridor between New York and Philadelphia. If you can't find what you need in the town, you can always go a little further afield, and amazing things are available in these other places. On another note, the town offers great opportunities for the people in the university community, particularly students seeking to do volunteer work. A great many students, hundreds of students, come into the town and work in the schools, act as tutors, work in social services. There's another way in which the town offers opportunity, and that is really in terms of sort of an intellectual resource. I'm not positive what everybody meant by that, but in other words, the people in the town are
intellectually and culturally active as well as people in the university. It offers quality housing. That's very important to the university community, bringing people in. And another point that came up often was the diversity of the population of the town. Of course, a lot of that diversity comes from the university, but it really is, in itself, a very diverse community. More, I think, than people realize. So you might say, in summary, a true sense of place that really has an attractive, is an attractive counterpart to a really remarkable university. Then we asked another question of each person. What do you think, thinking about the town and the university as part of one bigger entity, not two communities that happen to be stuck to each other, but one larger community that has problems that affect all of us, what really are the greatest problems or the greatest challenges that we face together that we really need to solve together? Over and over again, taxes, property taxes. People are clearly very, very worried about the tax situation. Another thing that came up again and again is this whole question of what is the university's responsibility towards the town, what should their contribution to the town be, and in what kind of coin. Another issue that's clearly on everybody's mind is the problem of transportation. If you make a change in one part of this community, it affects all the others. The changes in the arts neighborhood, or what's going to be the arts neighborhood, profoundly affect the movement of cars and people in the rest of the town, and there's a lot of concern about transportation not only inside the town, but in and out of the town and around the town. We didn't cover this extensively because we're trying to talk about the town and the town. People felt that there really should be better communication between the university and the town. They particularly thought it might be useful to have communication in some formal way in, say, the town newspapers by the university. In other words, a column where mutual issues are discussed. This is a different way of attacking issues than the letters and the editorials. Of course, the points of interaction between the university and the town as the university carries out its own planning sequence are very important. And those points of intersection where clearly the resources of both the town and the university are necessary would be the arts neighborhood, which affects a huge circle of people, Merwick and Stanworth, that land over there, and the Franklin Street lot near the hospital. There are points where the interests of both communities come together in quite a small space that acts as sort of a focus for collaboration, or could be a focus for collaboration between both groups. Another big issue is sustainability. How do we use the resources that are developed in the university to help the town also solve problems of sustainability in its own development? One person brought up the whole notion of, rather than talking about specific problems, why don't we talk about processes of communication and collaboration and set up systems so that we have mechanisms to bring people together and talk about the problems that engage us. Now, we have on our last little piece of paper sort of miscellaneous things, and every now and then it came up what actually the town does not offer the university that maybe the university community would like to have. One thing that stood out was affordable quality housing for lower paid employees and workers. Not only the groups that have come into town who do many of the jobs that the rest of us don't want to do, who have very poor substandard housing, but also people who work at the university who don't necessarily qualify for the support systems of the university for housing and have to live outside of the town. This is a sort of a strange situation to be in. Another thing is the whole territory of students, and how do we get students across the street and into the town, and what do they need? Well, they need, according to some students and according to people who know students, they want cheap food, cheap stores, entertainment, and fairly often it comes up that they like some nice cheap places to get a beer. Our table,
on everything.
right, but they're, you know, they're students after all. There were disagreements at our table about how accessible and open the university actually is. Some people felt it was the access to services and activity was very easy. Other people felt that the university was really very closed. This is where communication might be a help. Then there's some disagreement about, well, do we really want all these students down in the middle of town? Maybe it would be better having them where they are and not have them down in the bars with the cheap beer and the cheap food and the cheap entertainment. If you have all that stuff, then they're going to come. It create a whole new set of problems. The arts neighborhood and Dinky plans that produced a real mixture of opinions. The university attitude towards the community, there's a lot of disagreement about that. Some people feel that the university is arrogant, that it's actually threatening. Is it actually an asset to this town, or is it basically a threat to the development, the future of the town? It's so interesting because, I think we had 40 people all together, and we probably had at least 30 different opinions on these issues. And then finally, a question that never seems to go away, and that is, does Princeton University do its share? And what actually should its share be? What should it be based on? And, a lot of these questions are never going to be answered, but I think we have to find the mechanism to go forward together. I think one of the conclusions we can come to is that we're in this together. We need to solve the problems that we face together, and until we really find the means to do that, we're going to be wasting a lot of energy, print, and hot air, and maybe each other's time.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you. Okay, questions?
Yeah, I have some comments, being a member of that table.
Turn yours off.
I don't generally need a microphone, but I'll take it. I was a member of that table, and I'm a little bit disappointed in that there were some pretty strong feelings and quite a bit of consensus on a few of the issues that you touched on that I think are worth really kind of resting on a bit and clarifying. One of those issues is everyone, yes, acknowledged the value that the university plays in the Princeton community, both the borough and the township. However, what I recall is that after each of those comments, almost all of them, probably all but 3, there was always a but. And that but always included various different things. For instance, housing, whether it was housing, whether it was taxes, the tax burden, whatever it was. So there was a consensus among the group that there was still much, much more that the university really is responsible and accountable for, and that the borough and township community can expect. The other thing is going to contributions. Now, at every meeting that I attend, and this was something that was mentioned there, and that's the ratio of the tax burden. Princeton University is always very quick to say they are the largest taxpayer. They are indeed the largest taxpayer. However, in order not to be misleading, that should be taken within the appropriate context. And the fact of the matter is that they own 50% of borough property while paying only 8.3% of the taxes. So that a big issue and a big but, I know for me where affordability in Princeton Borough is very, very important, a big but is that all of this wealth does not continue to grow on the backs of borough residents, which undermines the integrity of its community and its diversity. Finally, going to the resources that Princeton Borough and Princeton Township contribute to the university. Aside from providing economic support, because we do carry the tax burden, and supporting the infrastructure that the university counts on in order to survive, Princeton also provides incredible social and cultural resources. I can tell you that out of the 50+ years that I've lived in Princeton, I know about the resources in the borough. I know about the early contributions of the Institute and the extraordinary scientists that even put Princeton on the map to begin with. I know that Westminster Choir College, as a world-class music institution, had people like Arturo Toscanini, who used to stay on Hawthorne Avenue, and Seiji Ozawa, Zubin Mehta, Ricardo Muti. I know that these extraordinary people have come to Princeton for many other reasons besides Princeton's university. And I will hearken back to a comment that you made earlier, talking about arrogance and a sense of entitlement. Princeton is Princeton not just for the university. Princeton is Princeton because of the contributions, the diversity, and the richness that has evolved over time, many, many years in this community. And one of the important things that I heard at that table, which I am very frequently, heard harping about in one way or another, and that is that Princeton Borough and Princeton Township are vibrant communities in their own right because of the contributions of many, many, many different people over time. We have to safeguard that. And part of that means that Princeton University cannot be allowed to develop to the extent where it undermines the integrity of this community, and that when we talk about collaboration, when we talk about working together, we have to talk about what benefits us as a community, not just Princeton University. Thank you.
Hi, I was at that table also, and I found the description that was provided was the most blurry, and it was like a propaganda speech for the university. I'm really appalled that I spent the whole 5 hours here with the intent of trying to get the university to take more responsibility for housing its own employees, for helping the town house other employees that come in here to work when they have a $14 billion endowment and they pay us $1 million in taxes. And we consider that to be wonderful. Well, frankly, it doesn't compare to the other major universities in other towns, and nobody wants to talk about it. Apparently, David may have the figures, but we know that Princeton University's contribution doesn't come close to that of Yale in New Haven or Harvard in Cambridge. And yet, we are not pressuring them. The purpose of this meeting and that table, in my opinion, and many of the people who sat at that table, was to pressure for more contributions from the university, not to have the university say, we want to move the dinky because we want to move the dinky. We want to build an arts community because we want to make more money and bring it in here. Well, we have people who are providing arts in the community now, who are providing restaurants in the community now, and to move the dinky and to put roundabouts which won't allow bike and pedestrian people to cross them. This is not an improvement in our community, and we have to fight for that, and we need to fight for it by pressure and by coming to public meetings. And this is a huge investment of time. I don't know what the number of people here is, but it's very large. And this investment of time should be used to force the university to be more responsive to the town. Thank you.
And trees and green and open space, you know, for the people. So that when the Y and Merwick utilize that land in that area and the university does something with the Merwick property, it would be wonderful if we could have the parking go underground and then have a nice park and keep the green, keep the town a beautiful place.
I wasn't at the same table with these two women, but I would say, Susan, that all those things were said, but your emphasis, to me, is way off, because again and again and again, the message I heard was the university is not doing its financial share.
That's right. Yes.
All right. I would like to say that I understood that the purpose of the conversation was really to provide a way for all the people